that this was the Lord's Supper was tonight. He washed the disciples' feet. He gave them the new covenant. He outed Judas. It was a big, big night tonight before Good Friday. And people just, you're busy finding your Easter outfit and figuring out what you're going to fix and doing your grocery pickup so you've got your food for the family on Sunday and the lunch and filling Easter eggs in case you're going to have a hunt with everybody, which I get. But you can't forget, all of that is for naught when you forget what it's all really about. And again, you have eggs on your table. And so we are not anti doing something fun for the children. We're not anti that, I promise. Because look how cute those kisses are. Are they the cutest printed Hershey Kisses that you've ever seen? It's like, yeah, they taste exactly the same, but the wrappers are super cute. And so I may buy several packs of them to keep them for later in the year because I think they're way cuter than the silver wrappers. Tonight, we're going to do a book that several people have asked me about. If you don't know, if you haven't been to Pursuit before, welcome to Pursuit. We are going through month by month. It doesn't matter if you miss a month or 2 months or 3 months. We're going through the minor prophets. And all that means in the Old Testament, they're minor prophets because of the length of their book. They're not an Isaiah. They're not a Jeremiah. They're not like these Ezekiel that are super long books. They're short books, some of them just 4 chapters. This one is 14, but still considered, Hosea is considered a very short minor prophet. Now, how many of you have actually read Hosea before? Read through all of Hosea and you understood all of it? It's a whole different story, understand it. We are not going to read all 14 chapters of Hosea. In case you were wondering if we're going to do that, we are not going to do that tonight. But it is a fantastic book, and I cannot wait to get into it with you guys. And a lot of people had asked about it. How many people know what Hosea is about? Holland, don't raise your hand because she asked me if it was a girl, if Hosea was a girl. Just a few minutes ago, she goes, so is Hosea a girl? I thought maybe this was an only girl thing. Yeah, we're only doing girl prophets. Anyway, yeah. Anyways, so how many of you know what Hosea, already the theme of Hosea? Yeah, the theme of Hosea is sort of a heavy, darker theme in the Bible. But it is one of people will argue that it is, apart from the death of Christ, the crucifixion, and the resurrection, that it is the most moving love story that God has for humanity is in this book, other than the crucifixion and the resurrection, which is unreal. And I really think you're going to get to see it by the end of this. So I wanted to talk real quick just about love and how we understand love and how everybody has a different idea. We're doing re-engaged marriage ministry, and one of the main things we end up talking about is family of origin. Everybody's family, and everybody had a wonderful childhood, and everything went great, and that's pretty much the theme of everything we talk about. It is not. But everybody's different ideas of love and how that might change when you have kids, and how it changes as they grow, and how you thought it was going to look before you got married, and then how you got married, and how you thought you'd feel about kids, or how you thought you'd feel about grandkids, and you didn't know till you had grandkids. And then people tell me they love their grandkids even more than they love their kids. Yes? No? Really? Blows my mind. Returnable children, I get that. I do. I totally get that. But the way that we understand love and how God has tried to explain it to us. Peanut, come here real quick. She's super excited. Huh? You don't have shoes on? That's okay. I'm all right. This is one of my 3. The other 2 are hidden somewhere else in the church. And I want to ask you, have I made it a secret how I feel about you your entire life?
No.
How much so?
You tell me.
How much?
What do you mean?
How much do I tell you?
A lot.
A whole lot? Does it drive you crazy?
Little.
A little bit. Yes, yes. Is it a little overboard in your estimation?
Yes.
Yes. What are some of the things that I do that irritate you about that? Not all the things I do that irritate you. Some of the things related to how I feel about you.
You make me come see you every night
And what?
so that you can hug me.
Yes, every single night before you go to bed.
Yes.
If you try to escape from the bedroom,
You
what
don't
do I
come
do?
to me.
They'll make you come to me.
You make me come
yeah,
to you.
Yes, and if you try to leave without getting a really long hug,
You
you
make
have
me
to come
come
back.
back.
Yes, yes. So have I ever made it a secret for any of the three of you?
No.
It's a little overboard. Yeah, okay. You can sit down now. There is something about after you have kids that you don't know where it comes from. It's completely organic. As soon as it's born, you'll watch these like 20-something-year-old parents, and then all of a sudden they'll post on Facebook, "Oh my gosh, we are so smitten." And I'm like, what has that kid done except exist? Nothing. They're just in love, and in the picture, they're both just staring at this little blob in a blanket. And they haven't known that kid. That kid's done nothing except cry, maybe, and they are totally in love with a person that they've never met before, who has no ability to return love back to you, has nothing to offer you except needs. It just needs and wants and expects in return. And yet that parent is so in love and gushes and is overboard for them. Last night we had National Honor Society induction, and all three of them were there. So I'm on like the fourth row on the end, and I happened to be on the same row where the boys were waiting to get inducted. So I texted them so they'd start looking for me. So when I text them, they start like looking around, and I have my phone, and I'm taking pictures of them like on the aisle, up in, and they tell me later their friends were going, "Your mom's taking pictures of you, like sitting on the aisle." I said, they go, "Why'd you do that?" "Because I'm sending them to Bubba because he couldn't come." So I'm sending them to Bubba and everything. So then as they're waiting on the stairs to go on the stage, and I have like 10 pictures of that, and then I have like 5 pictures of them walking across. Then they have to sign a book, and I have like 2 or 3 pictures of them just like signing the book. And then I have a couple of them walking back to their seat. And did the same thing with Holland. She was on the stage. And did I have any interest in taking a picture of anybody else's kids? No. But I was an avid picture taker of my own kids. As a matter of fact, when other people's kids' names were being called, I was actually texting and doing other things. Not gonna lie to you. I wasn't as interested. I did clap for lots of them, but it was a half-hearted clap. I was excited that they made it, but I wasn't even close to excited as I was that my 3 kids were walking across that stage, because they exist, because they're mine, and I love them, and I tell them all the time, it doesn't matter what you do. I can't love you more, and you can't do anything to make me love you any less. It just doesn't change. It just grows, and I can't control it. It's just there. That's what happens in this book, in Hosea. And what is crazy is, if you're a visual learner, you're going to be really interested to see what God decides to do in Hosea's life to give a visual of what is going on in his relationship to Israel and Israel's relationship to him. And he gives him a very real visual. But what he does is he changes Hosea's entire life to make a point to Israel. Well, we're going to talk about that in a little bit as well. So go to Hosea. What you're doing, you're going past Psalms and Proverbs and the bigger prophets. Go past Daniel all the way to Hosea. And like I said, we're not going to read the whole thing. Do not get scared. Hosea prophesied right around, we're guessing between 760 and 710 BC. And I always say this, we're counting backwards. We are about 750 years before Christ. He lives in the northern kingdom. And what that means, let's see if we'll get a map up here. He lives in the northern kingdom. He does not live in Judah. He lives where the 10 northern tribes live. Samaria was the capital. Okay, so we've got Jerusalem down in Judah, and he is up in the 10 northern kingdoms north of Jerusalem is where he is. And Samaria, the capital there of Israel. So remember, in 722 is when the Assyrians come in. They wipe out Samaria, and they spread the 10 northern kingdoms, 10 northern tribes. I keep saying kingdoms, 10 northern tribes everywhere. They leave Judah for now, but in 722. So we are anywhere probably from 730 to 760. So the clock is ticking for Israel. And what God has asked Hosea is, you go tell them what I say, and you do what I say. Our best guess is he's around in his 20s when God first talks to him and gives him the assignment we're about to read in chapter 1, because he's around for a really long time. Jewish tradition has him to live until he's in his 90s. And so this is a really long time. Some people will sort of romanticize a little bit the message of Hosea. He was famous, he was loved. I think if you go by the New Testament will tell you none of the prophets were loved. They were not beloved. They were loved after the fact for speaking the words, but in their time, they were hated. Because you're calling people out. Who wants to be called out? How well do you take it when you're called out? When somebody points out something, you're, I don't know who you think you are. That's your initial reaction. And that was their reaction. How dare you tell us this? And he's just doing his job. The life of a prophet, hard, sad life. So look what he's asked to do. Chapter 1 of Hosea. The word of the Lord that came to Hosea, son of Beri, during the reigns of Uzziah, Jotham, Ahaz, and Hezekiah, kings of Judah, and during Jeroboam, and it's Jeroboam the second, son of Jehoash, king of Israel. So all those kings of Judah while he prophesied, and Jeroboam the second was his king in the upper kingdom while he prophesied. When the Lord began to speak through Hosea, verse 2, the Lord said to him, go take to yourself an adulterous wife and children of unfaithfulness. Okay, whose translation says something different? And what's it say? A wife of promiscuity? What's yours have? Whoredom. Oh, this is nice.
Whoredom.
A wife of whoredom. Harlotry. Is that what? Prostitute. So go get you a prostitute, a wife of whoredom. Can you imagine? So we heard your son is marrying a wife of whoredom. That is not something the family's going to be proud of. In his 20s, when God calls him to this. Is that a weird request from God? God makes other requests actually a couple other times in Scripture of prophets to set a living example. And that's what he's doing with Hosea. He's got a point, though. So keep going. Wife and children of unfaithfulness, because the land is guilty of the vilest adultery in departing from the Lord. So Hosea married Gomer, daughter of Diblaim, and she conceived and bore him a son. And the Lord said to Hosea, call him Jezreel, because I'll soon punish the house of Jehu for the massacre at Jezreel, and I'll put an end to the kingdom of Israel. Jezreel actually means God sows. So what we start to see is God is going to start to name, he has 3 kids. God is going to start to name his children after the consequences that God is going to give Israel. So not only is their mom named Gomer, which is unfortunate, on all accounts, y'all don't even know one, except for Gomer Pyle. Y'all don't know one. And he starts to name their children after consequences. This is a hard thing. It's, you laugh, we laugh. You took a wife of whoredom, not funny to Hosea, I guarantee you. This man has been telling them the word of God, and he goes and marries a prostitute. How backwards does that seem to y'all? He had to go find a prostitute. Where do you find a prostitute? Not at church, maybe. Not for the right reasons, if she's in church. Let's look at their other 2 kids real quick, and then I'll move on and tell you about the rest of it. Verse 6, Gomer conceived again and gave birth to a daughter. Then the Lord said to Hosea, call her Lo Ruhamah, for I will no longer show love to the house of Israel, that I should at all forgive them. Yet I will show love to the house of Judah, and I will save them, not by bow, sword, or battle, or by horses and horsemen, but by the Lord their God. And after she weaned Ruhamah, Gomer had another son. So we have boy, girl, boy. Then the Lord said, call him Lo-Ammi, for you are not my people. That's what it means. And I am not your God. Verse 10, yet the Israelites will be like the sand on the seashore, which cannot be measured or counted. In the place where it was said to them, you are not my people, they will be called sons of the living God. The people of Judah and the people of Israel will be reunited, and they will appoint one leader and will come up out of the land, for great will be the day of Jezreel. Say of your brothers, my people, and of your sisters, my loved one. So, things are going pretty decent, other than being married to a prostitute. They're having kids. They're together. Until one day she leaves. And she goes back to her life before. How many of you maybe have read Redeeming Love? That's a good book. I do recommend Redeeming Love, Francine Rivers. What she does is she finds time in history, and she places books of the Bible into, this one, is this Old West? Yes, this one was Old West. And so places a Hosea and a Gomer in the Old West and tells the story like it happened, like 150 years ago. And so he wakes up one day and she's gone. Where'd she go? She went back. Why would you go back? You have a husband that loves you. He gave you 3 kids. He takes care of you. He has a job. He brings in money for the family. He adores you. He picked her. He chose her. God said, go find a prostitute. He chose Gomer. And your man loves the Lord. He is a prophet of the Lord. And you wake up and she's gone. She went back. So he has to go looking for her. God says, go get her. Go get her back. So he goes looking and looking. Don't know how long it takes him. But you can imagine where he has to look to go find her. My first experience with I've had a lot more experience with it since then, but when we were in Amsterdam when I was a teenager, and they have if you've ever heard of the red light district, have y'all heard of that? Do you know what that is? What that means? They have little apartments, and they have a light outside, and when the red light is on, that's how you know when you can go knock on the door or not knock on the door. So it has like a little window, so when the curtain is open, you can see the girl that's in there, and she's sitting on the bed or whatever. So a guy will stop at that one when the light is on, and they'll close the curtain, and all of those little houses have a red light. And I was a teenager, and I thought, what is going on? This is wild. Like, it was hard for me to process. And now the more I have found out in India about the brothels, well, they're put the 10 and 12-year-old girls in those brothels. And those girls live there day in and day out and work like 12, 15 hours a day. And the more you know, the more you realize this has been going on forever. What God is about to accuse them of is leaving him and following other gods and committing adultery by leaving him and following other gods. The main one at the time in Canaan was Baal, and they had different forms of Baal. And the worst thing that they had done is that they had sort of married, and no pun intended, they had married their worship of Yahweh to their worship of Baal. And they would still sacrifice, and they would still have their feasts and festivals to Yahweh, all the while worshiping Baal at the same time. And it didn't seem that weird to them. They were so immersed in their culture in the 10 northern tribes, so immersed that it didn't even seem wrong to them, that they're worshiping both. How do you think God feels about that? He's already pretty clear about that, yes, with Moses. But they didn't even realize what they were doing. One of the things about Baal worship was they would have two different types of prostitutes. They would have temple prostitutes because it was about the sexual act was very closely related to the religion. And so they would have sex under oak trees they felt like there was a magical power in the oak tree, under the oak trees on the steps of the temple, inside the temple. And then they would have the regular prostitutes that were not religious prostitutes, which doesn't that sound weird? The non-religious prostitutes too. And that's what he married. And so when he has to go look for her, he's looking in the red light district. And he's having to walk around looking for her. When he finally finds her, somebody else owns her. And he goes in. My guess is going, I'm her husband. I need to bring her home. She's mine. And the guy goes, I don't care who you say you are. I own her. A pimp, a sex slave trader, whatever. But Hosea has to literally buy her back. His wife, he has to buy back from the sex industry. Go to chapter 3, verse 1. The Lord said to me, go, show your love to your wife again, though she is loved by another and is an adulteress. Love her as the Lord loves the Israelites, though they turn to other gods and love the sacred raisin cakes. All that means is they are so immersed in this culture, they love it. The sacred raisin cakes that are offered up to these other gods, they love that. I want to worship God and Baal. I'm all for both. We're going to talk about that in a second too. Verse 2, so I bought her for 15 shekels of silver and about a homer and a lethek of barley. And then I told her, he recommits to her, you are to live with me many days. You must not be a prostitute or be intimate with any man, and I will live with you. And then he skips over. He's talking to Gomer, and then he skips over to prophesy. For the Israelites will live many days without king or prince, without sacrifice or sacred stones, without ephod or idol. Verse 5, afterward the Israelites will return and seek the Lord their God and David their king. They will come trembling to the Lord and to his blessings in the last days. He said, you're on your last leg. Y'all are about to get punished. Like, this is your last chance. You have to listen to me. You have to quit following these other idols and doing everything you're doing as your daily life and go back to the God that loves you and has said, you can't have any other gods before me. You can't have gods with me. You can't have gods beside me. You can't have any other God except me. He says, if you don't, you're about to be without king or prince. They always have a king. You're about to be without all this, and they're about to be. And it's going to happen over and over again. The Assyrians are going to come in. The Babylonians come in. The Syrians come in. Because they would not listen to what he's saying. He gave us an example. If you look, one of our goals in this Bible study is, when I am doing it, I am always thinking, what can they leave and go, this is what I know to be true about God now. I heard it in Hosea. This is what I know to be true about him. And where was Christ in there? Because he's in there. If you look, he is always in there. And he's in Hosea over and over again. Look at the end of chapter 3 again. It is the end of chapter 3. Verse 5. After the Israelites will return and seek the Lord their God and David their king. He is actually talking about in the church age, And David is his messianic stand-in because Hosea doesn't know the name of Jesus yet. Jesus is the son of David. David was just a precursor, just like Joshua was a precursor to David. And do you know this? This is super interesting to me, and I hope you'll remember this when you read this book from now on, that Joshua's name before he was given Joshua, was Hosea, which is Hosea. And they changed it. Moses changed him to Joshua, Yeshua, God saves. Same as Jesus, God saves. And Hosea was Joshua's original name, which means he saves, he helps, salvation. And what it was changed to is Yahweh saves. And Hosea's name means he saves. Gomer's name means completion. He completely saves. And you see, he's trying to prophesy about Christ with them at the end of 3. What happens after this, you have several, we're not going to read 4 or 5. I would like for you to read it at home. However, it is a lot to get into in here and can be really confusing. But what he gets into is what all Israel has done wrong and what their punishment is going to be for doing all of this. What is always going to stand out to you, hopefully, about every one of these prophets is how amazing it is that God comes and tries to explain to them over and over again what they're doing wrong. Like you hadn't already told them 20 million times. And you have it written down, and we had tablets, and we've had talk after talk, and I send prophet after prophet, and all the prophets say pretty much the same thing, and you never listen to me. And he still keeps coming back. That may be I don't know, was that me? That could have been me. I was like, that could be, was it you? Okay, you're just super close to me. I was like, I did something wrong with the microphone. It's making noises. Does what you do the day before keep me from wanting to love on you the next day? It never does it? That's disappointing sometimes, isn't it? You're like, a break. Have you ever known somebody or been this person yourself who just wants God, just wants God off your back? Because if you think it's because you feel guilty because of him, if you think it's because he's judgmental, if you think that's just too much of a burden to think God's watching everything, he knows everything, I want to get away, and you can't get away from his love. He does not just treat you with love. He does not just act lovingly. He is love, and he cannot be any different. There is nothing you can do to make him not love you, and it oozes out of him. So when he is sending the prophets and he's talking about this with Hosea over and over again, he's going, now, is it going to make me stop the Assyrians from coming in if you don't stop it? No. Will it stop me from giving my kids consequences? No. But you know what? Have you ever done this as a parent? You give them a consequence and they go to bed and you feel all bad and you want to go lay down next to them in the bed. Like, I made them cry and they're so upset and now I miss them and I want to go watch them sleep and just stare at them because they're really sweet when they're asleep. And God does the same thing. The love doesn't stop, and he's going to tell you over and over again. And we are on the other side of this. We know time is ticking down to the Assyrians come in and they wipe them out in 722. So you think this is what people have a hard time, combining God's love with his discipline and his justice. And his discipline and his justice don't erase his love, not at all. Because he's like, you know what? If I did not discipline you and I let you get farther and farther away from me, what kind of love would that be? The most loving thing I can do for you is to send the Assyrians in to wipe you out because you won't listen. Have you ever told your kids, you should listen? Because if you don't listen, them gonna have to do something. And you don't want me to do something. Just do it when I said do it. Don't wait for the consequence, and that's what's going on right now. And they're not listening. and they're not going to do it. Skip over to chapter, we're going way over. Chapter 11. This is when he switches. Because he's told them over and over what their consequence is going to be. Like, if you think you make it sound bad enough, there's no way they'll disobey. And how many of your kids did it anyway? I told you. And then you're mad at me for giving you the punishment. It sounds very familiar. Chapter 11, he switches though. Well, go up. I just want you to see a little snippet. Hosea 10:15, the last verse in 10. Thus will it happen to you, O Bethel, because your wickedness is great. When that day dawns, the king of Israel will be completely destroyed. Chapter 11, he begins again. When Israel was a child, I loved him. And out of Egypt I called my son. But the more I called Israel, the further they went from me. They sacrificed to the Baals and they burned incense to images. It was I who taught Ephraim to walk, one of the sons of Joseph, if you don't know who that is, Joseph in Egypt, taking them by the arms. But they did not realize it was I who healed them. I led them with cords of human kindness, with ties of love. I lifted the yoke from their neck and bent down to feed them. Will they not return to Egypt, and will not Assyria rule over them because they refuse to repent? Swords will flash in their cities. They'll destroy the bars of their gates and put an end to their plans. My people are determined to turn from me. Even if they call to the Most High, he will by no means exalt them. But look at verse 8. How can I give you up, Ephraim? How can I hand you over, Israel? How can I treat you like Admah, one of the towns, the 5 cities surrounding Sodom and Gomorrah that was destroyed? How can I make you like Zeboim? Same thing, one of the 5 cities around Sodom and Gomorrah. My heart is changed within me. All my compassion is aroused. I will not carry out my fierce anger, nor will I turn and devastate Ephraim, for I am God and not man, the Holy One among you. I will not come in wrath. They will follow the Lord. He will roar like a lion, and when he roars, his children will come trembling from the west. They will come trembling like birds from Egypt, like doves from Assyria. I will settle them in their homes, declares the Lord. He turns around and starts talking to them about how much he loves them after he has spent chapter after chapter going, look what you're doing. He lays it out pretty blatantly. And it's adultery is what he's saying that they have committed against him. I'm the husband, you're the bride, and you keep cheating on me and leaving me. So he'd said, Hosea, go get yourself a wife of whoredom, and she's going to keep leaving you and keep going prostituting, and you're going to buy her back, and you're just going to forgive her to show them what it's like to be me. And you're going to live like that so that I can show them what it's like to be me. Have you ever considered the fact that God might use your life solely for his glory? That your life might not be all about bigger and better and more comfortable and less illness and more money. And it might be way more about what the vessel he needs you to be to further his kingdom. Because he didn't seem to question, you know what, Hosea, gosh, I really hate to do that to you because that wouldn't be fair. I mean, your friends all got to marry like their high school girlfriend. And I'm going to make you go to the red light district, and then she's going to cheat on you, and I'm going to make you go buy her back, and people are going to talk behind your back, and everybody's going to know. There's not even a big preface to this book. Chapter 1, like verse 2, he goes, go find you a whore and marry her. And this is what we're going to do. We're going to tell Israel that you married Gomer because I want them to know how I feel. And we see no argument from Hosea, probably why he was chosen. And he goes and he does it. and gives up everything and marries Gomer. I believe he loves Gomer. And he keeps going to get her and buying her back and forgiving her, bringing her back home and loving her again. And God goes, because, chapter 11, I'll always bring you back. I'm going to keep going to look for you. I'm going to bring you back. I'm going to bring you back to me. Turn over real quick to the New Testament. Matthew 9:13. So you're not actually going too far. You're about to realize how really close to the New Testament we are. How many years are we before Christ? Anybody remember? 750? You're close. Yes, 750. Matthew 9:13. This is Jesus' question. Does this happen fairly often? Who's usually questioning him? Religious leaders. Pretty much self-proclaimed religious leaders. People that were experts, self-proclaimed, at following the law. And let's go ahead and start in 14 so you see what's going on. Then John's disciples came. How is it that we and the Pharisees fast, but your disciples are not fasting? Jesus said, how can the guests of the bridegroom mourn while he was with them? The time will come when the bridegroom will be taken from them, and then they will fast. Why am I'm not reading the right one. Give me 1 second, because that's not the one I want. Now I wish Bub was in here to tell me the one I want. Is he in here? Because I wrote it down wrong, so now I'm not going to be able to find it. I don't want to take the time to find it for you guys. But anyway, it's when Jesus, I'm just in the wrong answer that Jesus gave him. He says, because I didn't come for the righteous, I came for the sick. And I desire mercy, not sacrifice. And thank you. Is it 11? Oh, I just went back. Okay, somebody read that out loud. I don't want to go back. Yes. Yes, he is quoting Hosea. Because the people were sacrificing to him. Okay, I want you to think modern day now. People are sacrificing to him. They are still doing their feasts and festivals, and they are being religious, and they are bowing down to Yahweh, all while living their life, also worshiping Baal and temple prostitutes and everything at the same time. And he goes, God's talking through Hosea going, I desire mercy from you, not your sacrifices. Your sacrifices mean nothing to me when this is the life you are living. And Jesus quotes it again to the Pharisees, which would not settle well to them, because who is he relating them to then? They know who he's quoting. Well, he's relating them to the Baal worshipers of the Old Testament that are getting prophesied to. They feel like they're the complete opposite. And they're going, what do you mean you just worship? They're thinking their sacrifices are perfect. What does Jesus call the Pharisees? Lots of names. Snakes, vipers, whitewashed tombs. You look all pretty on the outside, but on the inside, you are like death. You have the stench of death. And he quotes Hosea to tell them that, because that's what the people were like. Now, bring this into modern day. Solomon says there's nothing new under the sun. Nothing has changed from the beginning of time until now. So if you had to bring this into modern day, would it relate? Does this go on now? How so? What do you think? You can talk, I promise. How's this go on now? stuff and claiming Christ. Do y'all feel that? Did you hear her? That we claim Christ with our mouth, but our heart, and he'll say that, but your heart is far from me. And nothing has changed. And these people that he brought up out of Egypt, that he saves continually, still keep getting pulled away from him. Even though he sends people to go, don't do that, don't do that, don't do that. So what is the difference then because we'll tell that to people and they'll say, well, I don't understand then, because you can't live a perfect life. God can't expect us to be sinless. So how can he say, follow me, and I mess up, and then am I like these people? And I think there is a big difference between following God, going with God somewhere, and you are with him, and I'm trying, you're looking at him, I'm with you, and you're walking with him, and and you trip, and you fall, and you're like, I'm good, okay, I'm up. We're walking, and you trip, and you stumble, and you fall down, he picks you back up, and you're good, okay, nope, I'm good, I'm with you again, we're good, we're going. And somebody who is like, yes, I'm good, you be there, and I'll be back, and goes on their own, and leaves him behind, and says, I do know him. He is way over there. I know him. I've heard all about him. And I've heard he's awesome. He is awesome. Sometimes I go to the building where we sing to him on Sundays, and sometimes I'm around when I've heard several of these verses. I may know one or two of them, and God is awesome. I can tell you that. And it's something good. They get a raise, and they're like, God is good. And their life has zero relationship with him. There is a huge difference in that. He's not expecting perfection at all. He's just saying, you just keep coming. And instead, they had said, oh, we do. He's the God that brought us out of Egypt. So we're gonna keep mentioning that while we go live our own life over here, way away from him, and do whatever we want. And it doesn't matter what he wants or what he said he wanted for us. We're gonna go do our own thing. And there's a big difference. He's all about you stumbling your way through life with him. He is not all about you claiming him and doing your own thing and not ever giving a thought to him. He tells the Pharisees that. He tells Hosea's people that. And he's telling us that today. I think I say this every time. Maybe I don't. Y'all may could correct me, but I feel like I say it every time. That I feel like we're in one of probably the most prominent times in history, or maybe it's just starting and it will get way, way worse as history proceeds, where this is very popular to claim the name of Christ, but to not know him at all, to where in Revelation they said, so many will call to me and they'll say, Lord, Lord, and he'll say, depart from me. I never knew you. I never knew you. We were never walking and you going, I love you. I'm repentant. He told the people, just repent. Assyria is probably coming, but I can stop them if your entire nation will repent. And you refuse. He keeps telling them, you refuse. So there are those that are walking and tripping, and they are going to get to heaven all bloody and bruised, and he's going to go, good job, welcome. And there are people that are going to be like the Pharisees that thought they followed enough rules and did their own thing and never knew him. And he's going to say, depart from me. I never knew you. Now, my question is, if you think back on your life, and this message that he has given to them, would the message apply to you? Would his message apply to your life? Are there parts of your life where you're like, yeah, I mean, I know who he is. People have told me about him. Is there supposed to be more to this than that? Do you claim him, but in your heart, you know that you are far, far from him? Go over to New Testament one more time to 1 John. I'm positive I have the right one this time. 1 John 4. Really close to the end of the book. First John 4:9. This is how God showed his love among us. He sent his one and only Son into the world that we might live through him. Okay, I don't want you to skip over that verse really quick, because here's the option. He said, this is how God showed his love among us. He sent his one and only Son into the world so that you may not die forever, so that you might live, you might have life. He came to save you. And that's what he's trying to do for the Israelites through Hosea. And they're refusing. And he's like, I'm trying to do this for you so you'll be the example for me, that I'm going to save everybody. And I keep having to come try and gather you back in. This is how God showed his love, because we weren't sure really what love is. He said, I'll show you what real love is. We're not sure now what real love is. You used love to describe about 50 things this week that you don't really love. Just be honest. He sent his one and only Son into the world that we might live, so that you might live through him. This is love, not that we loved God, but that he loved us and sent his Son as an atoning sacrifice for our sins. Dear friends, since God so loved us, we all also ought to love one another. You know what other New Testament verse that reminds me of? That too. It's John 3:16, that he so loved, which we'll describe as that, not just that he so loved like this verse, but that he loved the world in this way, with his Son. He loved the world with his only Son, the death of his Son. But that when she chose to go away, when Gomer chose to leave, he chose her and provided a life for her. She gave up the life and left it for a life of prostitution, which doesn't make sense until you realize that millions of people are doing that every day, and that you have been there as well. But that she chose to go away, and he brought her back. While we were yet sinners, Christ died for us. She left him. She went away. She said, I don't want anything to do with your life. And he went and bought her back while she left him to go prostitute. So if you think that getting your act together would make Christ want you more, it's not. He bought you with you were completely lost in sin, is when he went to gather you in. With my 3 kids, it doesn't matter what they do. It won't matter where they are in the world. They cannot escape my love. They can't escape it because it just exists. God is speaking through Hosea to the people to explain something that has always been and will always be. He has not, will not change how he feels about you. Nothing you've done has even altered it. Do I get mad at my kids? Do I get frustrated with them? Absolutely. It does not change my love for them. Do I discipline them? Yes, I do. So what we find here in Hosea on this side is, this is what I love when I didn't understand about the Bible early on in my life, is how all this Old Testament, look, that is all these pages before Christ. How is that significant? Because the entire time he is going, come on, I'm saving you. Come on, I'm saving you. And the ones that believed him, even though Christ had not died yet, the ones that believed him, he credited to them as righteousness. They were forgiven. He goes, if they went, oh yes, I'm coming with you. He's saving us. He's saving us. And we are over here going, he has saved us. He has saved us. And he's going, come on, I have saved you. You can see the cross. So we're pointing back at the cross, and Hosea was pointing towards the cross, going, he wants to save you. And we're looking back going, he did it. He did it. And we just have to listen. That's it. So the question is, how hard is it to listen? Is it any harder in 750 BC than it is now? It's exactly the same. I know you would like to say a year from now that you will feel exactly the same about Christ if you are just so in love with him, and that is your intention, and that is fantastic. You have no idea what can change in your life that can really challenge that. Really challenge it. I was reading Genesis this morning as well, and wondering how in the world Abraham felt when God said, I need you to go murder your only son. Your only son was Sarah. I need you to go sacrifice Isaac. And he packs up the camel and they ride off to go sacrifice him as a burnt offering. What kind of request is that? We were doing good yesterday, God, till you asked me to do this. It's going to be a challenge. And all he's saying is, I just want you to remember who I am and how I feel about you, and the love story that I keep telling you over and over, because it never changes. Never at all. I'm not human. He even says, I'm not a man. He says, I'm your God. I'm not a man. When I say I love you, it doesn't change. Your circumstances might. Might he ask you to go marry a Gomer or something similar? He might. I think we talked before about Elizabeth Elliot and her husband, who he called to go be missionaries in the jungles. And they killed her husband. He's trying to tell them that Jesus loved him, and they just killed him. And you think, well, we were obeying you. And that's what I had planned while you obeyed me. So what you'll have to remember is what Hosea is trying to tell him, is that I love you, and that's all that matters. No matter what I bring, I love you, and I am the God who saves. Did he save Hosea from being married to a prostitute? No, he did not. Did he save Elizabeth Elliot's husband? No, he didn't. He has saved your eternity. He has given you life so much better than anything you could ever have here. He knows it's hard for us to understand, and he's so patient, he'll just keep telling you over and over and over and over and over, because he wants you to know. And if he would tell them over and over, he will tell you over and over. So when you question it, you ask him, and he will tell you. He's okay with you questioning it. You ask him, and he will let you know how he feels about you. We did not get to go through all of Hosea, and I really want to play a song. I was worried we were going to go long, so I skipped our opening song, which I really love, so I'll play it as we leave. But I do want to play our song that we have for the end. But does anybody have any questions of anything that might have been confusing, that may not have made sense, anything at all? you know you can ask. Nothing? Y'all are easy. Really easy. I want y'all to, we're going to lower the lights and we are going to watch this video. And I want you to reflect on what he's telling you.